but there are plenty who are disappointed in me for having the stance I have. They say it hurts their soul that someone in the industry is having the views that I have.
Hey there, writer, and welcome back to the Novelist Studio. I am your host, Anna Del Valle. And today I have a very special and controversial guest for you. Katie Chambers. I know she's chuckling because we had like this whole entire conversation before recording the podcast because you guys, I have an editor on the podcast. I know it's crazy. I have an editor on the podcast, but not only is Katie Chambers an editor, she is an editor of editors. She works with editors as well as is an editor herself. And she has been doing this gig for almost a decade. It's funny because she reached out to me and she said, "Hey, I heard about your podcast and I have a lot of different views about AI and editing. And can we have a chat?" And you guys, I was super excited because Katie Chambers is the first real life human editor that I have been able to talk to. And I have tried many times. I have tried many times to talk to editors and I just get shut down. And Katie, your business is called Beacon Point and you've been doing this for a long time. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. So, oh my gosh, you are seeing everything that is happening with AI right now and the writing industry and the editing business. And, I have been waving this flag for so long like, hey, editors, please wake up to what's happening. You can actually use this tool to do better for your customers and for your writers. Why is it? Why all the controversy? Can you give us your perspective on this?
Okay. Well, some editors fear that it will take over their job if it gets too advanced. So, and I get that. I think that fear came in with any invention. The tractor got invented. And I was like, oh, our farmer's going to be obsolete. And no, they still had to be able to run it and use it. They needed their expertise. And I've been actually showing editors this, like, hey, it's not going to take over your job because you still have to have the expertise to feed it correctly so that it gets good output. Somebody who doesn't know what to look for is not going to get as great of output as somebody who does know what they're looking for and who does know what the issues are. So that's one thing that they're scared of. Another thing is, I think it's partly ego, and this is the same with any profession. It's not editor specific. You've been doing something so long and you're good at it. And you're like, why would I need something to help me? I don't want something to help me. I want to show that I'm good at it all by myself.
Right.
You know, I don't need that calculator. I'm a math whiz. I don't need that, internet. I'm really good at finding things in the library. It's that ego of, I want to show how great I am on my own that they don't want to take away. That's that sense of, I'm amazing because I can do this without that.
Right. Yeah. I think that's super interesting, this ego spin. Well, you talked about both job losses and the ego spin. And I think that this always makes me remember that quote, you either think you can or you can't, and you're right both times, right?
Yeah.
You either think you can or you can't, right? Right. So, is AI going to take an editor's job? If that's what you believe it's going to do, it's absolutely going to do it, because if you're not looking at this tool, like what it is, which is just a tool, right? Like a calculator or a freaking airplane or whatever, it just happens to be an artificial intelligence tool. And you don't understand how to leverage, use it, and how to interact with it with your own expertise. Like you said, it's not smart on its own, right? It's got to be prompted in a certain way. So if you don't learn how to do that and go all in and, have the sense of curiosity that it requires to see, hey, let me see how I could use my expertise with this tool, right? If you don't have that, then yeah, it's probably going to take your job, right? But if you're on the other side and going, like yourself, right? Like, let me check this out, right? Like, what can I really do here? And I know other editors that I had an editor write to me and say, I tried it and I was really impressed at first, but then I started discovering that it was really crappy. Well, yeah, going back to what you're mentioning about prompting, you have to learn how to prompt it, and you have to learn. It's not just smart on its own, right? It needs expertise from somebody to lead it, right?
Yeah.
And then the whole ego thing that you bring up, that's interesting too, because that happens also with writers, right? Like I get a lot of if I give my manuscript, if I feed it into ChatGPT, is it going to like steal my idea? No, it's not going to steal your idea. But like,
You can't steal your idea. There's no new idea under the sun.
right, right, exactly, exactly. It's not going to steal your idea about a single mom that's broke and falls in love with a cult leader. I mean, I don't know how many ideas can you come up with,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly. But nobody's going to write the book like how you write it. I mean, it's different in how
Exactly.
I've read a
Yes.
bunch of books that have the same common theme, but I still love them for different reasons. Like no one writes the same plot and the same arc and everything.
Oh my God, let's talk about that a little bit. So, you have read a lot of books, obviously, as an editor, and you see all these common themes, but they're executed completely different.
Completely.
Right. So even if it's, a similar idea, right, which is not even going to remember word for word what you told it. So it doesn't even matter. It's a moot point. But yeah, I go that I get that whole ego thing. So what have you seen in your editing patch of other editors that you work with? Are you seeing it like breaking up into two camps, like anti AI and pro AI, or how are you seeing it play out in your industry?
So it's not as stark. There are people in the middle. There are plenty of middle grounders. But I feel like it's almost like talking about politics, which we know right now, if you talk about politics, I just want to
Yeah.
cry anytime politics comes up because you just know people are going to be nasty. Even people who are normally not nasty. And I feel like it might get that way with AI. Right now, people are being kind. I
Uh
think
huh.
editors as a whole, well, most of the editors I interact with are very kind because they're careful with their word choice, right? They know how to like words can hurt. So they're very kind with the way they phrase things. But there are plenty who are disappointed in me for having the stance I have. They're like they say it hurts their soul that someone in the industry is having the views that I have. So there's some strong anti-AI sentiments, and some of them actually bring in the environmental issues with it
Yeah.
and the way it was trained
That one's moot, by the way, environmental. But yeah, go ahead.
and the way that it was trained. They have some issues with the background of it. But you look at into any
Mhm.
company and there's controversial background. Unfortunately, I'm not saying that I support that.
Yeah. No, I want to unpack what you just said, right? With the whole it hurts their soul, right? I can understand that, right? Like I can understand that it hurts. They have a very idealistic view of the world, but we're not living in 1250 BC. I mean, it's 2025 and there's a ton of technology and I don't know what world you think you're living in if you think you can go against something as powerful as artificial intelligence, right? And instead of partnering with it, I'm curious. And the whole like, oh, it was trained on copyrighted material. So what? Now the authors are getting compensated. It's already happened. It's already happened. HarperCollins is opting in authors for $2,500 extra for 3 years to train the model on their book. People are taking it, other people are not taking it, whatever. Right. But it's the horse is out of the barn, like one of my guests said that was here not long ago. And AI, they used her books to train AI, and she loves ChatGPT and Claude. She uses it all the time, and she's going to still continue to use it. Right. So it's like, I don't care that they trained the model. I have a great tool I never had before for $20 a month.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm curious, what are some of the like characteristics that you would say that folks in the I'm disappointed in you that you have these views on AI versus the folks that are more on your bandwagon. Are there like different characteristics of these editors? Like, for example, were they trained by a method or what are you seeing here?
No, a lot of them are, and it's a good thing. It's a very good thing. They're activists, and this is not a bad
Oh,
thing. This is a good
okay.
thing.
Okay. I can
Um,
understand that.
they take stances. They fight against injustice. They really care deeply about humans, and so when they hear how it was trained or things that violate their conscience, they activate against. And I get it. Like there's things I've heard that I'm like that sucks.
Mhm.
But it can't fix that. I can't go back and fix what they did. And I wish they would have done it more ethically. But you talk about business people and they're after the dollar, and things aren't always done ethically to get the dollar. But once
Mhm.
they get the dollar, once they get the tool, like, I don't think they usually just feel like participating in the tool is endorsing what was done.
Right.
I don't endorse what was done.
Mhm.
Okay. I don't endorse not asking for permission and not paying them if they need to. Like, I like what you said about what HarperCollins is doing. It's saying, you can opt in
Mhm.
and then we give you this money. That is
Mhm.
the ethical way to approach it.
Mhm.
I realized
Mhm.
initially maybe there were some unethical ways to approach it, but that's already happened. And
Mhm.
and I don't want to sound harsh because I'm not. Trust me, I feel for it. But I guess I'm not as a I don't, I can't change it. I can't change what happened.
Right, the horse is out of the barn.
Yeah, and by not using it, what am I really protesting? I'm not protesting what happened. That doesn't change what happened by not using it.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I think these people, they're just they've got that strong conscience. In good conscience, they can't use it, which I get, because I get that. I get where they're coming from, and I applaud them in some ways for being so empathetic and caring.
Mhm.
Yes, these are good traits. They're very good traits.
Mhm.
But you just, at some point, it's like, it happened. It happened.
Right.
I don't endorse that happened, but all I can do now is use the tool and talk about how to use it ethically, and talk about how, let's get compensation for these authors. Let's let them opt in.
Move
Let's make
forward.
that move. That
Yeah,
was, yeah.
let's move forward.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I mean, the horse is out of the barn. And here's the thing, like, I love what you said about this camp of editors that they're just activists by heart. I think you said that beautifully. That alone makes me want you to edit my book. I loved that sentiment. And you're right about that. I'm a very data driven person, right? I'm very data driven, and that is the only way that you can convince me of things. They did train on copyrighted material, right? That did happen. But Meta just won the copyright lawsuit that was brought on by a group of authors, right? Including Sarah Silverman. This just happened, I think it was like a couple weeks ago. And the reason, did you hear about this?
I've heard talk of it. I haven't heard all
Okay.
the details. Yes.
So the details. So basically, they're saying, hey, it's transformative use. What does that mean? Yeah, we used your words, right, to train the model, this artificial intelligence, but it doesn't remember word for word. So it's transformative use. It just learned how to talk using your words. So how is this copyright infringement? Because copyright infringement is you're using word for word and you're making money from it, right?
Yeah.
So that it was kind of a gray area for me because I was like, where are they going to go with this? Because I kind of felt like, yeah, you're right. It is transformative use because it's never going to put together a sentence from Sarah Silverman's book back
Yeah.
to me, right?
It
It's going to
actually can't.
transform it.
Yeah. I had to what I wanted to do for one of my social media posts. I have a hot tip Tuesday where I just take a tip from one of my blogs and make that a social media post. And I used to go in and like search my blogs and then find something I could make a tip. And now I just feed my blog to AI and I say, give me 3 posts. But initially it was like, what are you pulling from? That's not even my blog. You're pulling from just the topic, because I would just give it the URL. So I had to directly feed it. And then even that, it's like, I told you to use my exact words. Why aren't you quoting me? And it's like, it came back, I can't quote directly. And I was like, no, I want you.
Oh, right,
So I
right.
actually, now it does. Now it does, because
Mhm.
I've actually talked about how this is
Trained it
my
that
work,
way.
trained it that way. Exactly. But initially,
Mhm.
no, it's like, I cannot take your work and quote it that word for word. I'm like, it's my
Yeah.
own work and I'm asking you to, because I want it to be in my words. But now I've kind of just get it in the gist of my words, and use an exact example. Like I have trained it to, I want the example that I have in there of modeling the concept. I want you to use the exact example, but
Hmm.
if you've rephrased the tip a little bit, but I want it to
Hmm.
be my words. And so it doesn't use your words exactly. It's like, I was an English teacher. When I taught students how to write, we looked at other people's writing. We
The way.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, we had
How do
to.
we learn how to talk?
We dissected great authors' writing and what made it great. Why was this essay on this topic more persuasive than
Right.
this essay on the same topic? What made this one more persuasive? Now, how can you translate that in your persuasive essay to be
Yes.
more persuasive? So I did that all the time. I took people's work and said, let's learn from this.
Yeah, exactly. And I love that you're saying that. And one of the things, like, if one of the things that I want people to take away from this podcast, which I'm super passionate about, super passionate, please, if you're going to work with an editor, make sure that your editor has an AI strategy. What do I mean by that? Right? Katie, like, I opened up this podcast with the background that it's been nearly impossible to talk to an editor. They don't know what to do because there's so much misinformation still going around about what AI is, what it could do, how it could steal, how it could, right? And there's a lot of complex terminology, transformative use, fair use, toggle off the model, do this, do that. People just are afraid, right? And I've always said this, when I'm going to hire an editor, I want the editor to know how to use AI, know how to prompt AI, know how to feed my manuscript to AI so that it could get great, so that that person, that editor can get great output back, so that that editor can have like 20 heads of subject matter expertise through the lens of their own expertise and be able to provide the writer with this three-dimensional feedback that wasn't possible before for both structural edits, character deepening, character arcs, whatever.
Yep.
Right? How do you and your clientele talk about AI? Does it come up at all in your conversations?
So I'm working towards perhaps adding into my contract a check mark where they can say, I'm okay with your using AI, and I would spell out how I would use it. And I'd link it to a blog that would educate them on how it's not going to steal their work. And
You can give them my free book, by the way. That'll teach them
there you
everything
go.
they need to know.
And
ChatGPT for creative writers. Yeah.
just like, okay, go to this link to help you make an informed decision on whether you want to check the box or not. Like, I'm
Mhm.
not bulldozing you over. But you know what? Here's what I've always said about an editor. Authors are our clients, yes, but more importantly, the reader is who we're trying to serve.
Oh, I love that.
So while
Mic drop moment.
you're my client and you can tell me, you can reject or accept my changes. And the only time I push back is I feel like you're going to do a disservice to your readers by rejecting that change. Like, if I feel very passionate about it, I might push back and say, here's why. If they still don't want to do it, then okay, it's your book. You have
Mhm.
final control always. But because I serve the reader, I want to do the best that I can from a reader perspective. You can't see your book from a reader perspective because you wrote it. I can't see my own blog post from a reader perspective half the time unless I come back in 3 years later and go, oh, okay, maybe that's how it sounds. Like, you don't know what's missing on the page. You don't know how it's coming across. So my role is to make it the best it can be in the time and budget allotted. And without the use of AI and the budgets that a lot of my clientele have, I can take your to a 5. But if I
Mhm.
used AI, I could potentially take your 3 to an 8
Yes.
in the same
Thank
budget.
you.
In the
Thank
same budget.
you.
Because
Yes. I
before,
love that.
I would be able to, on my own, take your 3 to an 8 on my own if you
Mhm.
had the budget and time for it. And I'm saying, if you let me sit with your manuscript for 6 months of editing and you paid me for 6 months worth of editing, then yeah,
Mhm. Yeah.
but I cannot do that when you need your book turned around in a month and you have only this budget.
Mhm.
So I'm going to make it the best I can make it in the time and budget allotted. I will. That is my role. And I'm going to serve the reader. So I'm going to say, what does the reader need? What is the most bang for your buck here? Well, the most bang for your buck with this nonfiction book is your message is getting lost because it's so disorganized. So I'm going to focus on organization. But if I had AI, I could focus on organization and I could focus on elevating the sentence at the same time. You know?
Oh my gosh, I know. This is exactly the drum that I have been beating with editors and the use of AI. And hearing you talk, it's like I feel like you're leading in the space, Katie. I really do. And that's why I wanted to have you on the podcast, because I was just dumbfounded when an editor finally reached out. I was like, oh my God, what is this, a unicorn, right? So if you're an editor and you're listening to this, pat yourself on the back right now if you are open to learning, because I love what you just said right now. You said that the reader is the ultimate customer, right? And if you have a tool like AI, you can take somebody's work from a 3 to an 8 instead of from like a 3 to a 5, right?
Yeah.
Because you're just going to have more well-rounded feedback, a better tool to use. It's why wouldn't you want your editor to do that? In fact, I had an editor reach out to me and say that she signs a document for clients saying that she is not going to use any AI tools. And she
That's why
signed
I
it.
said right now I have not used AI. Well, I haven't used AI in terms of feeding it clients' work yet
Right,
because
because you're facing this challenge right now, right?
right, because I don't
What you're
have
you're building. Yeah.
yes, which I don't have that check mark box in my contract yet. I want to put it there. My hesitancy was like, what if they see that in the contract and go, I don't even dare let her see my manuscript because even if I don't check it, what if she uses it? And I wouldn't because
Uh-huh.
I am an ethical person and I'm going to follow what you are concerned about. I might go,
Right.
hey, you're lost because it can make it better. But ultimately, I'm not going to do something you do not want me to do because that is just not how I operate. That's not
Right. But it's
fair.
completely understand, right? Like I completely understand that. And I just think that we're going back to it's an educational component, right?
Exactly. And that's why if I had that contract in my contract with the checkbox, I'd say I'd link it to this educational piece.
Hmm.
So let's talk for examples. Let's go to that nonfiction book example. I recently was editing one that literally organizational mess. Great content, but
Hmm.
the organization was everywhere. I mean, I had to cobble paragraphs from chapter 7 and chapter 1 and chapter 3 to make a cohesive chapter. And because of this, I had no room in my brain or time to elevate the level of the writing itself. And
Exactly.
so some awkward sentences were left in, some wordy
Hmm.
sentences were left in. Whereas, like I said, I could have fed this and been like, okay, I've taken all my brain power and time to fix the organization. Now, can you help me give ideas? Like, I could feed them this chapter and say, can you now edit it for awkward sentences, wordy sentences? And because I have the expertise I have, I would see, you know what, I'm not going to take that one sentence you did because you actually took away their voice or you changed the meaning. But I see what you did, and now it's going to help me make changes without using so much time and brain power that I already used on the organization. So already a lot of their budget
Right.
and a lot of my brain and their budget and the time was used up on that. So this is now helping me also do the sentence fluency stuff. But I have the expertise I have to look at it and judge the output and say, oh, this is good. I'm going to take it. Oh, this is not good. I'm going to take it, but I like kind of the direction it's taking it, so I'm going to tweak it. Much like
Hmm.
what an editor, what I hope authors do with my feedback. When I give them feedback, and I am very much a hands-on editor, which I know is not the right approach for a lot of authors. And that is I make changes directly to the text instead of a
Hmm.
comment on the side that says, here's a suggestion of how you might change it. I
Hmm.
make it change so they can just see it. But then they know that they have final say. So they can go, I accept it, or they can say, nope, I don't like that at all. Or they can say, I accept it. And your comment explained why you did what you did. So I'm going to accept it, but I'm going to tweak it to kind of make it a little bit more my own. Love when they
Hmm.
do that. Love when they do
Hmm.
that. If I felt like a transition was missing and I added in that transition and you go, you're right, that transition was needed. And I love how you connected my topics. I'm going to take that, but I'm going to change the wording here or there, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's what I'd like to see.
Hmm.
But yeah, as I said, I haven't. What I've been doing in terms of
Hmm.
AI, how I have used AI on client work without permission because I'm not feeding it, is was editing a fiction novel recently. Just really was lacking character depth. The plot was great. I mean, so good. But it was just so hard for us to be immersive in the world because we weren't connecting with the character. It
Hmm.
was all too much of a character just telling us what they thought and saw. And so it was hard to immerse. But the plot was so great that I'm like, I want your
Hmm.
reader to be able to immerse. So I gave them some of my own examples. And this is what I will do with things like that. I rewrote a scene showing some character interiority and I actually touched the text. And then later I just flagged it and said, now use my example to do the same with this scene, right?
Hmm.
But I needed to give more examples than the one. And
Hmm.
I was hitting up against time because there's other things
Uh-huh.
I needed to the budget and time I was hitting up against. I'm like, if I keep going, I'm not going to make a fair rate myself. So I went into ChatGPT and I explained to it what the scene was about. I didn't feed it their words. I just said,
Hmm.
here's kind of the nature of the scene. There's two people in the scene. They're arguing over XYZ. This is the personality of the character. Um,
Oh,
how
that's
could
so
you
much work.
yes, exactly. How could you give me more character depth? And then I took that And I made a comment and I even said, I'm like, AI wrote this. I did not feed your manuscript AI. AI wrote this, but here's an example that you can use to now help you with other scenes.
Yeah.
And I didn't have to be, I wasn't up against the budgetary because it takes me longer to write it myself than it did. Even though it was more work to prompt ChatGPT, that took longer than it would have taken for me to write that.
I know, that's what I'm saying. It's so much work, and you wanted to do such a good job for your client that you
Yeah.
even probably took, because I know what it's like to talk to ChatGPT. I mean,
I had
in
to
terms of writing,
very
right?
specifically to get the output I wanted without feeding the client's work. And I made sure
Right.
I was
That is
very
a lot of
neutral.
work.
Yes, I made sure I was very neutral so it couldn't actually steal the idea because I was so,
Because you wanted to do what you told your customer you were going to do, because of course you're an ethical person.
yeah.
But I think that I wonder, when you meet with a customer, right, or client, if do you, or maybe you haven't yet, but it sounds like you're open to, do you even say, hey, do you even bring up AI at all in your
No, but
conversations right
that's
now?
what I'm considering putting it in my contract. I like was
Yeah,
waiting.
the checkbox,
I was
right?
yes. I was waiting for the peak of the controversy because I think now it's starting to get more use on social media and people are
Hmm.
talking more about how they're using it effectively. I'm still seeing a lot of writers talk about like brain atrophy as if like writing is the only way to have critical thought.
It helps you think deeper. I hear that's another fear mongering thing. Oh, brain atrophy. How could it be brain atrophy if it's
It,
making you think in five different ways?
it could if you literally are just like, write this for me and then copy paste, right? Do this for
Oh,
me,
yeah.
do that
Well,
for me, copy paste.
real
And
writers don't do that. Yeah.
right. So I was a teacher.
Huh,
The whole reason is to
right.
learn how to write. Well, not the whole reason. Learn how to write and learn how to critically think. English is the study of
Mhm.
critical thought. So I'm like, I want you, if I'm giving you a persuasive essay, first of all, I want you to work on your own writing ability. But second of all, I want you to understand what will persuade this audience the best. And I want you to use your
Mhm.
critical brain. But if you use AI to help you kind of elevate it, that's different. But I mean, I would have issue as an English teacher if they literally just said, write my essay. Because what do you learn? Like that defeats
No,
the
of
point.
course.
That
I
defeats
mean,
the point
AI is.
of citing an essay. I'm wanting you to critically argue the pros
Mhm.
and cons for this topic. So I need you to critically think. I need you to be able to think like, what would your audience have against it? So how can you counteract their arguments? How can you validate their arguments? These are good things to know how to interact with humans that have different opinions than you. How do you
Mhm.
validate them? And how do you argue in a way that's not name calling? You know, we could use a lot of that today. We could use this critical thinking today. How do you approach someone who has a different viewpoint than you and have an intelligent conversation? I want my students to learn that when they're writing that persuasive essay, and I want them to learn how to write. So I wouldn't want them to just do this for me,
Mhm.
you know. But that it all depends on how you use it. If you use it that way, then yeah, there's going to be brain atrophy.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, but
Like,
like you said,
well,
it's not the only thing, maybe for like the writing part, but
yeah. I'm
you
just
know.
thinking if you constantly are just only using it that way. I sometimes use it that way. I sometimes say like, look, write this for me. But that's because I've already done plenty of other thinking. I've already edited my
Well,
client's
it
work. I've already done a lot
depends
of
on the subject matter, right? Like I have written blog posts where I'm like, okay, I'm just going to write a very skeleton blog post and just fix it for me,
yeah.
right? Because it's just a very transient document. I would
Yeah,
not
I've done
do that
that
with a
too because I'm
novel,
like, you
right?
know what? So I'm just talking about if from your time you're little, if you're just like,
Mhm.
okay,
Right, right.
use AI to do all your writing and all your thinking,
Oh, of course.
that's problematic, right? And that's
Yeah.
kind of where the big fear mongering comes from. And so as a teacher, I would have a hard time if that was like mainstream. This is what we do now because that defeats the whole point.
Well, yeah, AI in universities is a whole different ballgame. The other thing I want to touch on, I want to go back to this thing which I found fascinating, that you're having to jump through so many hoops as an editor because you want to do such a good job, right? You're like, okay, well, let me give you a hypothetical scene of what I'm working with so that you can give me a variety of different ways and teach me basically how to even do a better job for the reader, which is ultimately your real customer, right? I would be curious and and God, it would have to be like, you would have to have like a one pager, because I hate to see you going through all of that work, Katie. I really do. Because people that don't use ChatGPT day in and day out like we do, they don't understand. They think it's just like, oh, why am I paying you? You're just going to put it up on ChatGPT and give me that
And
output.
here's the thing,
That's
let's
not
be
what's
honest.
happening.
But
That
let's
is
be
not
honest.
what is happening.
There will be people that do that
I,
because right
well,
now there are scammer editors out there. There are people out there right now that say, "I will edit
oh,
your."
let's talk about the scammer editors. Okay.
They're like, well, they say, "I'll edit your book for $200." Their whole book,
Wow.
which is basically less than a
I
penny.
didn't even know this was happening.
Oh yes,
$200.
yep. Oh, give me $300. I'll edit your whole book. But what they're doing is they're feeding it into Grammarly or they're feeding it into XYZ program,
Right.
and then they're sending it back out. And I've actually had authors come to me who first went to one of those editors and realized they didn't get the quality they wanted.
Wow.
So then they
Okay.
come to me, so it is happening. So I guarantee you there will be editors out there who will be like, yeah, I'll edit your book. Just pay me only this much. And they know that they're going to get a lot of people because it's cheaper. And people look at people that are like me who are charging what I need to charge. And they might
Oh,
go, oh,
they're
I'm going to
trying
pay
to
for
do a
it.
good job too. I mean, editing a novel is not a small feat.
No, no. And in
Mhm.
these scammers who use AI that way, if they're not going to be trained first as an editor, because a lot of them are, there are editors out there who've never had any editor training. They just are
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm good at spotting typos. Oh, I like reading. I can do this. I'll put up my shingle. And they will not know how to prompt AI effectively because they
Mhm.
don't know what to look for. I have training and expertise, so I know exactly what is going on with that scene. I know what can make it better. And I can
Mhm.
prompt AI to help me do exactly what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
So if you go to somebody who's not an industry expert and they just feed your manuscript to AI and say edit this and then give it back to you, it's not going to
Well,
be.
it's going to miss a lot. It's going to miss a
Yeah,
ton of things.
it's
So
gonna.
first of all, as somebody, who has trained AI to do developmental work myself,
But
right?
that's different. I'm talking about someone who just goes to regular
No, no.
chat
That's what
GPT.
I'm going.
Yeah,
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 no. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You can't just go to as somebody that has trained ChatGPT to do developmental work, right? Like I have. You guys, it took me months to train my model to be a developmental editor, right? Which I call Ellis, and she's fantastic, but it took me months to build that out, okay?
yeah.
And
And you
I'm
have
still
writing
perfecting
background.
it.
You
And I'm
have
still
writing
perfecting it.
background. You know what to look for, and that's what I'm saying.
Exactly.
There will be scammers. This tool coming out is fodder for those scammers. There's already scammers out there. There's already
Well, yeah,
better scammers out there. So there will be
yeah,
people who will just say, "I'll edit your book." What they'll do is they'll run it through ChatGPT without any effective prompting because they don't even know how to effectively prompt it and send it back to you. Is that going
right.
to happen? Yes, but that scammers still are doing things right now. They're
100%.
they're still
Yeah.
doing things. So
And
you gotta
they're gonna stay, they're gonna be around for a long time, and they're not
find.
going anywhere,
Yeah,
right?
but they're not going to do great work. I mean, honestly, they're
No,
just not. If
no.
someone's charging you $200 to edit your book, I guarantee you're not going to get great work.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. So going back to the challenge here, which is a real concern, right?
Yeah,
Like if I'm a customer and I'm like, hey, Katie, I want to work with you, but you're not going to feed my stuff to AI, right? Like I can understand in the back of their head, they're probably hearing that bell that you just rung for me, which I hadn't even thought about, quite frankly, like the scamming bell. Of course, scammers pop up all the time, right? Whenever there's an opportunity for a quick cash injection with whatever new shiny object they can sell online, right?
yeah,
But I think that what's important, and if you're looking for an editor, right, that has an AI strategy, I think it's important that you have a conversation with that editor from the beginning. Okay. So, like, I would envision it something like this. Like, I come to you, Katie, and, we start talking, going back and forth about the book and whatever. And then I would hear you say to me, tell me how you feel about AI, and let the client tell you what their views are, right? Like, oh, it's a scamming tool. Oh no, it's great. Oh no, I don't know how to use it. Oh no, what are you going to do with this? Are you just going to feed it and then give me back the and then I think that then you could be, because what we're doing here, me and you, is we're trying to educate as much as possible, right? Because here we have a tool that it's a Porsche, right? That could be a Porsche, but people are walking into your office wanting to buy a Toyota, and you're like, listen, I can sell you a Porsche, okay, for the same amount of price. Okay, the same price, but you're going to get a lot more quality because I'm going to take you from the 3 to an 8. And this is how I use AI, right? And this is what sets me apart from just feeding your manuscript and asking for feedback. That is not what we're talking about here. That
No.
is not developmental editing. So I think that it's because I really want you to be able to sell, and you really want to be able to sell the Porsche, right? You want to be able to sell the Porsche, but it's about asking the right questions, right? And how much education does that person have on AI, right? I'm a technologist, so I have always been on. I get it. I have a view of it that is very non-threatening to me because I understand it really well, but I also understand that not a lot of people understand it the way that I do.
Yes. And I think
And
that's why I can
yeah,
be that unicorn editor because
yes.
I'm minored in information systems. I minored in
Okay.
information systems. And
Okay. Here we go. So you're a techie in the back.
I very much, I actually, and I've built computer programs for editors in Excel using advanced macro coding and things. So
Katie, you
I
should
like,
told me that from the beginning. I would have understood. Okay, awesome. This is great. Go on, please.
no, I love technology. And my husband's an electrical engineer who geeks out over technology. I mean, he sits and just shows me like every YouTube video about what they're currently doing in autonomous stuff and how it's advancing,
Uh-huh.
what he can see the future like. And we talk tech all the time in this house. So
Awesome. Awesome. So yeah, I think that it's important to have that conversation early on if you're an editor, but really understand, like Katie, you're sitting in a really good position because you are a technologist. So a little piece of information we were missing here. No wonder. So even more of a reason to, you know, to educate other editors around you too as well. The end goal here is to really have an amazing book for the reader, right? Something that's going to, transform their life, make them laugh, make them cry,
I
you
say
know.
that's the goal in conjunction with preserving the author's intentions and voice and all that. Because
Yes.
I want to make that clear that while I serve the reader, I'm not going to be like, what would make the reader better? What would serve the reader better is if you change this plot entirely to,
Right.
right? Like, let's just junk that. And I just want to make that clear because that is a fear of authors. It's let's take what you've already written and elevate the
Mhm.
experience for the reader. If there's some plot holes, sure, I'm going to tell you how to fill those in. If there's some character issues where this character's not serving it, sure, maybe take that out. But I'm not going to come in like, you know what? I don't think readers are going to read this plot, so let's just change the XYZ. Because I would read the plot, there are some I read
Right.
that I'm like, that plot doesn't intrigue me, but I get it. So I just want to clarify that because that is a fear that could be a fear of the author. Like, well, if you're trying to just serve the reader, what if you think the reader's not going to like, and it's just your one opinion? So I'm knowing how to elevate what you've already done.
Hmm.
I'm taking what you've written, your world that you've created, if it's fiction, your concept that you're teaching if it's nonfiction, in the way you're teaching it and the way you
Hmm.
want to approach it. And I'm just elevating the quality of the writing and the experience for the reader to experience
Yeah.
your ideas.
Yeah. Katie, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on this podcast. I feel like you are carving the path. I get chills right now because I feel like you are carving the path for the editing world, which I have been looking for the Messiah, so to speak. I don't know. I was even kicked out of a Facebook group of editors because I brought up AI. I was kicked out. Like it's just amazing to me that, that I feel like the lights are starting to come on and a lot of people are waiting on the sidelines. I feel like you're not going to wait on the sidelines. I feel like you're going to be very honest with your customer and your client and really educate them and tell them here's what you can really get, right? Here's what we're doing here, right? So that they can really understand and really democratize as many voices as we can in this new golden era of literature that we are embarking on. Because at the end of the day, you provide a service and there is a dollar sign and a time attached to that service. And you can only do so much with the budget that the writer has. Yeah, so it's been awesome. So tell me where, like, I would want to get on your mailing list so that I know that I have you on my short list of editors when I am ready to edit my book. So where do I go to stay in contact with you?
So my website, beaconpointservices.org, and then I have a newsletter called The Shining Beacon. It goes out once a week unless you opt for just the monthly digest, and it's all in a month if you prefer it that way. And that is on my website. You can find links to tons of links to it. And then I have a resource center for both editors and authors because I'm an educator at heart. So I'm all about resources to help you. So yeah, so it's all there. I can send the links if you'd like to all of those. My newsletter
Yeah.
is the main way.
I could attach a link to the show notes so that people have it. So we'll do that. So Beacon, what was your website again? Beacon Services? Beacon Point.
Beaconpointservices.org. My business name is Beacon Point, but
Beaconpointservices.org.
the
Okay.
URL is beaconpointservices.org. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. And then get on you have a newsletter
Mhm.
and you talk about market, the industry, you talk about editing, you talk about a bunch of stuff. So get definitely on your newsletter. If anybody is looking for an editor and wants to get a quote from you, wants to understand, how to leverage AI if they work with you, they can send you an email directly through
Yes.
your website, right?
Yes. I also, so if you go to, I'm sorry.
After
Ugh.
lunch, do chore or bath.
That is my Alexa that is wonderful because it gives announcements to my kids while I'm working on when it's time for them to do their chore.
Oh
And
my God. Okay.
they have a
That's
certain, they have a certain amount of tablet time that they can do, and then they have to start doing their chore. And so anyway, so it was going off to remind them.
what
Oh
we
yeah,
were talking about is
yes.
people could email you
Yeah,
and
yeah,
they
yeah.
ask, how do you
On
work
my
with AI?
website, yeah, so on my website, if you're a nonfiction author, so you'd go to editing and then you'd click on nonfiction author, and then it would give you all the information on my nonfiction editing services. And there's a form you could fill out to request a quote. And then if you're a fiction author, you'd go to editing and then you'd go to fiction services, and it'll take you to the fiction page that, again, has a form you could fill out to request a quote. So, yeah.
Okay, awesome. And then of course they can ask you questions there on
Oh,
like,
yeah.
hey,
Yeah. And then I
I
have
heard you on the
regular content.
podcast, like, how do I drive this Porsche? How do I get the Porsche for the same price of the Toyota?
Yeah, I mean, just like any website, I have a regular contact me page for any questions you want to ask if you're not ready to request a quote. But yeah, I have lots of ways to get in touch. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Katie. Thank
Yeah.
you for being here. Hey there, writer. I hope that you enjoyed this show. And until next time, keep on writing.